Hello and welcome to this video in the series Sustainability Bites, where we give you bite-sized bits of information about some of the key issues that occur in all sustainability standards. Now, most standards require that you have some sort of management plan. Now, the type of management plan may vary. It may be prescriptive in some cases, or in other cases, the standard may just require you to have such a plan. For example, Principle 7 in the Forest Stewardship Standard, management planning requires that the organization shall have a management plan consistent with its policies, objectives, and proportionate to scale, intensity, and risk of its management activities. It's a little bit more than that, but it doesn't get more prescriptive. Whereas in the Alliance for Water Stewardship Standard, the whole thing revolves around what's called a water stewardship plan, and there are often very prescriptive details about what needs to be in that plan. So while the concept of having a management plan is fine in itself, it's often very poorly executed. One of the mistakes that a company may make is to write an extensive plan which is just about meeting the certification standard. It doesn't have anything to do with their operational plans. Another common mistake is to write a plan that repeats content that's already in another document, an operational procedure, for example. And therefore, if that operational procedure changes, it quickly goes out of date and becomes a documentation control nightmare. So the first recommendation is to keep your management planning documents simple. So our first recommendation is to use the management plan as an outline, covering the things that the standard may require, but then point to the relevant documents like operational documents or procedures that actually cover those requirements. The same is true of external documents that you may need to point to, like legislation, for example. Most standards require that you demonstrate that you keep up to date with legislation that you need to comply with, and to do that, you've obviously got to have some sort of list of legislation somewhere. It's a lot easier if that legislation is somewhere else in its updated form. Just point to that. For example, many industry associations, on behalf of their members, will keep an up-to-date list of and manage that list of legislation that's relevant to that industry. Just point to that. Don't reinvent the wheel. So when the standard requires certain things to be dealt with, mention them in the overarching management plan document, but then point to where they are in your sustainability system or in your operational documents. Let me give you some examples. Let's assume we're writing a management plan for something in the primary industries. Let's call it pinnacle farming. Special values management is always a key part of management planning. So this may read, properties managed by pinnacle farming may include special values. These values need to be identified prior to work being undertaken, and the appropriate protection management procedures and systems need to be implemented and annually reviewed. And then say, see the pinnacle farming special values management plan. And then that plan also may reference various subplans when you drill down into the sort of special values that you're trying to manage. So the special management plan may consist of subplans like the management of special values in fauna and flora, management of cultural values or indigenous cultural values, management of special values ecosystems, or the management of water quality and water catchments, say, for example. And now we've captured that in our special values management plan. We can references those in operational plans. So, for example, harvesting. The overarching management plan might talk about harvesting because it's a required part of the standard, and it might talk about the approach to sustainable harvesting. But then it talks about the procedures and management issues that apply. It might say, for example, see the pinnacle farming harvest plans. And when you get to that plan, it might reference those plans that are applicable. For example, the management of fauna and flora, the management of cultural heritage and indigenous values, the management of special value ecosystems, and the management of water catchments and water quality, if they apply. So hopefully you're beginning to see how you can develop a management plan and link in certain sustainability procedures, and also link that into your own operational procedures. One thing I'm often asked is if there is an overarching industry association for, say, farming or agriculture, if they've got an approach to a certain issue and it's documented, can we use that approach? And my answer to that is yes, providing that it's relevant on your particular property in your particular region and also relevant to your operations. So in summary, there's no one size fits all, but there are some basic guidelines for any management plan. Where the standard requires a management plan, keep it simple, keep it relevant. Try to make sure it's a management plan that reflects your company's intentions clearly and concisely. Try not to repeat content from other plans or procedures, such as operational procedures. Use references and hot links to the relevant documents like the sustainability plans or the operational procedures that apply to your operation. Finally, note that some standards require you to have a publicly available version of your management plan, and normally that's a subset of the plan with confidential information removed. However, my advice is always best to include as much as you possibly can in the public submission copy, and if possible, make the management plan the public submission copy in its own right. That way you avoid questions from stakeholders about what you're doing, and you're demonstrating transparency, which is one of the key issues in the sustainability standards world. Here at Pinnacle Quality, we've had years and years of experience in developing such plans and integrating them into the systems and the documents that you already have. In other words, we always start with what you've got, and then we develop an approach around that. That's because you know your own business. So for example, for farming, I always say that farmers are dealing with biological products in rural areas, and of course they know about the key management issues that they need to address. And very often when we do this exercise, we find that a lot of stuff is already almost always there. So you might be surprised how easy it is to overlay the requirements of the sustainability standards management planning into your current system. And so at the end of the process, you'd recognize it. Say, yeah, that's actually what we actually do, just with a few additions. So contact us at the details shown at the end if you need help with this. And as I said before, we've got years and years of experience, and we've helped people avoid these common mistakes. And of course, once again, if you've liked this video, press like. If you think other people can also benefit from it, please press share and send us your comments. Thanks again.